take time to say a special good morning to the listeners and viewers. How's everyone doing this morning? It's Classic Radio and GBN TV. It's to the point. It's Tuesday, is the 6th day of January 2026. Good morning to one and all once again. It's another edition of Opposition Tuesday. On today's edition of To the Point, once again, I'm your host, GT. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Especially those of you travel along on the nation's roads. Good morning to you. Those of you at home who are listening, those of you who are viewing at home, good morning to you also. Those of you via social media platforms, let me take the time to say good morning to you also, and certainly hope that you're having an A-OK morning. My guest, let me introduce my guest on today's edition of To The Point, of course, representing the opposition. We have Senator Norland Cox with us this morning. Senator Cox, good morning and welcome. How are you doing this morning, sir?
Good morning, GT, and I would say pleasant morning to you and your listeners, viewers, everyone locally and in the diaspora. It's so wonderfully. Right. It's a pleasure to be here as always.
Well, I think I should have said Happy New Year to you too also, Good morning and Happy New Year.
Well, Happy New Year to you and also Happy New Year to your viewers, listeners. I trust that everyone... New Year started wonderful, safe, blessed, and in good health and in good spirits. I think that is the most important thing. Health is of most importance in everything. So, yes, I want to extend that as well to viewers and listeners.
All right, great. The Christmas season has just ended. What in economic indicators are you using to judge whether the household and the small businesses experience a good or a bad Christmas? Let me hear your response to that, sir.
Well, first of all, Christmas is much more than the whole issue of commerce. Christmas is, as we know, it's a traditional time for giving and sharing, family getting together and things like that. So, I trust that from what I'm seeing, what I've heard, that would have taken place. Persons would have had an opportunity to visit other persons, to share. We saw a lot of that taking place. And so, on that aspect of it, I think that has continued in some cases, and I want to say, that is very good to see that our people continue to maintain those traditions. Those are very important for us in terms of who we are as a people. On the economic side, I think that there have been varying responses. And normally something like that, we use what informal engagement. You would speak to people, different persons in different businesses, persons who normally would maybe do a little hustle around this time of the year, persons who would engage in particular activities around Christmas. Also, businesses do look at the Christmas as a particular time where they expect a certain amount of revenue as part of their projections for the business as well. So you'll come engagements with persons in various business sectors. You will use that as a measure to find out whether or not Christmas has been good for persons on the commerce side. And there have been varying feedbacks for a number of reasons. But in general, most of the persons did indicate that it has not been as bright as they expected. And the word that you find hearing a lot, a common word, is that things are slow. With the Christmas gone, what kind of Christmas is here? So those were some of the comments. And I'm not just Carriacou and Matlick alone, but also on the mainland a lot. Those are some of the feedbacks. I don't know for other persons, but that is what I picked up. So I trust that it wasn't too bad for most persons. In other areas where persons think that they've done well or satisfactory, that is all good and well. But generally, the feedback seemed that it was a very quiet one on the finance and economic side.
Okay. Carriacou and PT Martinique has a strong fishing community. What have you heard directly from fishermen and fish vendors, per se, in the last 2 weeks or so? And what are the top 3 concerns that were raised most often? If you could tell me about that, sir.
But you see that this is a very serious issue, and I have spoken about it on several times, different platforms in Parliament, and I think the last time I was on, I spoke about it as well, and so it is one that I am very concerned as well. I have family members, I have friends who are directly involved in the fishing sector, and it's a major issue, it's a big issue. For some reason, there is some deafening silence on it to some extent. I think that there need to be more engagement around this time, knowing that the whole issue centers around a significant sector, a sector where you have in excess of 20 million EC dollars that is going to be impacted, or that is going to be removed from the economy through the loss of fish export. So this is something significant. This is something big. We have been always concerned about how do we go forward if this ban were to come into effect. So that remains a concern. What I can say, we at the Parliament level, we did pass a new Fisheries Act to adjust to meet the requirements. That is what NOAA asked of Grenada. And I know that the government did announce that they had reapplied for compliance from NOAA so that Grenada could be given the green light to continue. However, I think there is much more to be done apart from resubmitting a reapplication, because from my understanding, a lot of the boats are not fully compliant as yet. While on the documentation side, we would have submitted certain documentation as certain procedure in terms of how we're going to do recording, how we're going to do the monitoring. I think all that have been submitted. But the question is, I don't think a lot of the boats are up to mark as yet in terms of the change in terms of the fish implements, the equipments on board for monitoring, especially cameras and things like that. I don't believe that all the boats are up to mark as yet.
Okay.
So that is the challenge. But in terms of the main concerns are centered around uncertainty. GT centered around uncertainty. Uncertainty regarding how long this ban is going to be. Persons are very concerned about that, and that taper into know how that is going to impact whatever reserve or revenues that they have saved. How long that they're going to be impacted. And the third concern they have is whether or not government is going to look to see if there is any opportunity to support them or to provide some financing, some mechanism to support them during a particular period, probably for the next 3 months or for the next 6 months. The government may have a better view as to how this is going to play out, or how long they believe that they can get a feedback in terms of opening up back the market. So this is very significant, GT. This is significant. This has significant impact on families, significant impact on communities, for like Pidimatlik in particular, with primarily a fishing community, where loss of income is going to be a difficult thing to deal with. I noticed some of the fishermen, they have started some going out themselves and doing fishing the smaller pelagics and selling to the boats that are going to Martinique, as a subsistence income to just keep their household going in the meantime while they wait for some feedback from the ministry on the way forward. But those are the three main concerns: whether or not they're going to get some support, and how long is this ban going to draw out for. And the issue is, their concern is how this is going to affect themselves and their family in terms of revenue loss.
Okay. I also want to ask you this, Senator Cox. As of today, what has been publicly confirmed about Grenada fishing access to the U.S. market? Is there an official notice of the extent? Is there official of an extension? Or the lifting restriction, or either anything of that nature in terms of confirmation been put out thus far?
No, I haven't heard anything in terms of any official. Well, initially, I was asking the question even as recent as December when we were debating the budget. And I did ask the question, what is going to happen? I think the minister responsible indicated that he said there was a potential ban. And I think it was what you could say a diplomatic response, because at that time, January had not been kicked in as yet. So we can safely say that we are into January. So based on what was put out, we can say that the ban has been effected. unless government say otherwise. But we haven't heard any feedback from government in that regard to say there's a temporary stay. Whether or not this temporary stay is for 30 days, 90 days, 120 days, we haven't heard anything of that sort. So I think that is where the uncertainty lies. In my conversations and deliberations over the past few months with fishermen, I have been indicating to them and suggesting that conservatively they should look at a 6 months period, start looking at saving, looking to see how you can manage your expenses, whether your mortgages for your boat or for home or other expenses for at least 6 months, because I look at it from that standpoint that might be a suitable time, enough time for at least everything to play out. And that was conservative in the sense that hoping that time could be shorter. So that was the suggestion that I was giving them when we were having conversations over the past 6 months or so.
Okay. I also want to ask you, well, since there's no public, confirmation either way, if the ban is going to be in place or not. So I'm saying if there's no confirmation either way, what information should fishermen, reasonably, expect from government right now in terms of the whole situation or the whole battle as it is right now?
Well, I think, first of all, the question is what next? What next? I think the fishing community is looking for some guidance on how to proceed. And that might be different approaches because of the different category of fishermen in terms of the size of the boats and how far they go out and certain equipments and implements that they use. So I know this is more targeted to the longliners that go far out at sea. So I think the primary focus is to start with those boats, have a conversation with them as to what next. I think as soon as possible to have some input, have that meeting with them. I think it's very important to give them some certainty. In terms of alternative markets, I know that is something that the ministry themselves would have indicated that the fishermen must look to. I think the ministry can also give some support and guidance into how possible markets that we can look at regionally and otherwise. I think that is something that is that they need to look at as well. And if possible, I know sometimes through the Caribbean Development Bank, through World Bank, there might be areas for support for initiatives like this where you want to support a particular sector, where you're trying to address an issue or concern. So there might be some monies there that they can access to make available to fishermen in various levels. So I think those are three critical approaches. I think those are the conversations I think that they probably need to have right now to bring some comfort to the sector, to bring some comfort to fisher folks, because it's not just going to affect the boats themselves. Remember that you have our vendors in the respective markets who rely on fish coming in and they buy and sell over as part of their daily livelihoods. So it's a trickle-down effect in terms of the persons who participate in the sector. So those are things that I think we need to look at.
Okay. Now, let me ask you this also. What is that practical consequences for the ongoing uncertainty, as especially for fishermen and their household expenses? You did mention, a while ago, you said fishermen should probably, think about ways of they can save to manage their mortgages and so forth. But what is that practical consequence of the ongoing uncertainty right now?
Well, direct loss of income. It's just basically you're saying that the fishing community, a significant portion of the fishing community, is going to be, I don't want to say unemployed, but a significant loss of revenue that they would have had from an assured market. That is the direct consequence on the side of the community in terms of the fisher folks who are directly involved in the sector. Then you have a consequence which comes now to the country in terms of the loss of revenue from the fish exports. That is significant. You're talking about almost $10 million US dollars in terms of revenue from fish export. You're going to lose that. So that is what is going to impact. And government, of course, depends a lot on revenue through VAT for the upkeep and running of the country. So that is a significant impact. There's also a consequence directly on families, communities who depend on the fishing community for spending in the small shops, for who might be also supporting various families who might have persons going to school. The family, the home is going to be impacted in that regard in terms of that significant loss of revenue. So those are the significant consequences. And on the whole, for example, a community like Pidimatnik, they are going to be impacted significantly. And of course, they will have to start looking at alternative measures to see how they can sustain themselves in the interim, providing that we can successfully regain access back to this assured market where we can get premium prices for fish products.
What percentage of fishermen within the both islands, Carriacou and PT Martinique, will be, of course, affected by this? In terms of, if you could have that figure off your mind, if you can tell me that, what is the significant percentage of fishermen who will be affected? Is it a large percentage, or is it just a minimal amount in terms of fishermen? And you said more of the longliners who do that, who maybe experience it the most. But what percentage of folks in the fisher folks in Carriacou and PT Martinique will be affected by this?
Well, from my recollection, in terms of the fishing, the longliners, I think probably 90% or more is fishermen from Pidimatnik in particular. And so that is as a consequence of the persons involved in fishing direct. But it's just more than those persons. As I indicated, you have persons who rely on fishing products for resale. So we have a number of vendors in the market, the fish market in St. George's, in the fish market in Grenville. We do have one or two persons in Carriacou who buy over from those fishermen and resell as well. So the question is whether or not the confidence will be there for the boats to continue to go out in terms of for local consumption, whether or not they believe that they can sufficiently get the demand for the fish products locally. I think what is happening now in terms of we are in the tourist season, I think that is probably a good thing that could help complement that demand and drive support for the fishing sector, because you have an influx of persons now, more activity at the hotels, the restaurants, because you have more people coming on island. I think that can help. The question is whether or not the fisher folks are going to be sufficiently encouraged that they can go out and able to come back and sell, to be able to cover the expenses from selling locally. I think that is where the issue is going to be. I think there are a lot of talks about the prices going down, but I think that will be more influenced by the cost of the operations of the vessels going out, because if they're not going to be able to recoup their expenses, they wouldn't go out at all. And that is, I've seen that from past practices where even when the prices overseas in the US have dropped to a point where they believe that is not sufficient for them to recoup, they wouldn't go out. And they know what to do in terms of affecting demand and supply. Of course, that economic philosophy of demand and supply. So they are quite skilled in that regard. So I believe that there's an opportunity right now because we do have more people on island because of the tourist season. So there might be some window for them to at least operate on a smaller level during this period until we can get some assurance that the market is going to open up back.
All right. Senator Cox, we drew for a break. Let's take it when we come back. We certainly continue the conversation. Stay with us, folks. To the Point, Classic Radio, GBN TV. We will be right back after the break. Don't touch it down.
Thank you for following our stories, updates, and programming throughout the year. We look forward to your continued trust and support in 2026 and beyond. On behalf of the team at GBN, I am Deidre Seeley, wishing you happy holidays.
Got something to share?
Call us at 440-1252.
WhatsApp 405-3052 or 407-8458.
Or email gbnnews@gbn.gd.
GBN News, first, accurate, voted #1.
Say welcome back to our listeners, welcome back viewers to the Point Classic Radio GBN TV. Let me say welcome back to Senator Cox. It's Opposition Tuesday here on today's edition of
Thank you, GT.
Senator Cox, I still want to keep our conversation, on the issue in terms of the fishermen and the fishing sector and so forth. I still want to keep our communication on that. Now, If you have to, of course, what action I would like to ask. Let me see how I can frame this question to you. What action can opposition senators like yourself, candidates, take without the executive authority, especially in terms of supporting the fishermen right now?
It's a very important question, and as opposition, based on our structure, when you're not in government, you do have limitations in terms of how much you can do, what you can do. But still, there are things that opposition can do to help support initiatives like this. One of the things that I had immediately done when we learned what was taking place was to reach out to the Minister for Agriculture and Fisheries, of course, and we had a very candid conversation on the matter. I did indicate to him my full support even before the legislation was drafted. I indicated my full support towards getting this going because it's something that we all recognize this is a national issue. This is a very important issue for our country and, of course, a significant demographic in terms of our fishing community and how that has played in terms of the development of our country, our families and everything. So we had a candid conversation about it. I did offer some suggestions as to what they can do in terms of trying to get reapplication before the end of the year, which they successfully did just at the end of the year. Albeit I thought it will move a little faster, but nonetheless, the reapplication took place. And those conversations that we had was to see if we could have get enough time, do enough between that time when the announcement came and the end of the year. So at least there would have been a temporary stay in terms of the ban being kicked in to shove shove that suspension down the road, so at least our fishermen could still operate. Let's say for another 3 months. So I'm hoping that that is the conversation that is taking place right now, whether or not the government can ask NOAA, the U.S. Authority, for a stay on the ban. Like give us another 3 months or so to get all the fine tuning and the rest of stuff in order. That is what we will be doing. That is one of the things that I will be doing, asking government to do that. So in support of that ban and in terms of the fishing sector. So that is one of the things that we do.
Okay.
Secondly, what I've been doing is having that conversation with various fishermen one-on-one, and the conversation centers around where they are and how they are going to be impacted in a more direct and personal way. So one person would say, look, one fisherman I spoke to him, he said, look, I don't have any mortgage, and what I did, I take all my finances and I just rebuild my house after the hurricane. So I don't have any savings. He utilized all his savings to rebuild his house. So his intention now was to go hard, come 2026, to try and to rebuild back his savings. So those were the conversations in terms of and giving suggestions for each separate or each unique scenario where a particular fisher folk might be. So that is the conversation that we are having. Hopefully, one of the things that we are hoping to do is to have maybe a more formal setting with small groups of fishermen to kind of nail down on some of the things that they can do. I've also been having some conversations to see what is the likelihood of the European Union in terms of the market, and whether or not there is an opportunity for more fish to go to Martinique. So in the meantime, those boats can divert fishing from going out and catching tuna and maybe catching some of the pelagics that are in demand for the Martinique market. So those are some of the conversations that we've been having to help them in that regard. So,
okay,
GT, that is what we have been doing. I mean, we have been giving, and personally, I've been giving support to the fishermen in that regard, and even more support and helping them to understand. Because one of the things that we recognize in dialoguing with them, they do not understand. They don't have clarity as to what this whole ban and everything is about. So I think that is an area you need to help them, because you help them to plan better once they get honest information as to what is really happening, what are the feasible timelines. I think that is very critical. The timeline, how long this thing is going to draw us for, is the top concern.
Let me also ask you this: what would a short-term, support package look like? That will target especially the fishermen specifically. That short-term package. What would you suggest that short-term package could be like? That would aid to help the fishermen as they go through this particular process. What they're going through right now.
I think one of the things that you could do, government can probably look at in terms of packages, and that would be of varying sizes for different boats. The smaller boats who don't go far, they do catch tuna, but they don't go far, like the pirogue type boats. They don't go very far out. There'll be a different package support for those boats, as against the larger boats that go very far. I think one of the things they can look at some opportunity to at least create some, maybe a monthly stipend for those boats for the next 3 months per se. I think that will be very much welcome. I think that is something that if I had an opportunity to do, is something that I would probably try and get done. I would love to see something like that being implemented. I think that will bring some comfort. I don't think that the fishing community is unreasonable, and I will be asking for something large or some unreasonable figure. But you could work by some measure to say, look at the boats, and maybe, like, for example, the cost of going out for a trip, that is maybe a good place to start. So if it costs about $2,000, $3,000 for the boat to buy ice, fuel, groceries to go out. You can use that probably as a measure in terms of a stipend. That is one way to start. And there are different schematics, there are different approaches that you can take, but I think there is a good opportunity if the government can find some support through our partners to help during this period. I'd say for at least the next 3 months. I think that will bring some comfort for them. I think that will be something reasonable and something feasible if they can achieve this.
Communication is one of the chief aspects within this whole the battle that is taking place on right now. Now, what communication system should exist, if I may ask it in that way, for the fishing sector, especially during this disruption that is expected to, as it not only expected, but is already at a point of disruption already. What communication system should exist now?
Well, I think right now, direct face-to-face meetings is most critical. I know that the ministry have been working. I know that they have been trying to do the best to resolve this, in fairness to the minister and his team. But what I would suggest is that you can have some schedules, like say monthly meetings from now. So at least once a month, you meet with fisher folks and give an update as to what is taking place. I think that will be comforting. That will bring some comfort to them. I think persons they would want to meet face to face to deal with something. They would have questions. They would have concerns. They would probably even have suggestions as well. So I think a direct face to face meeting is the best form of communication right now.
All right, great to hear you say that. No, there's always that alternative market that could be put into place right now. What is how realistic, if I should say it in that way, is an alternative market option? Let's say for the next 30 to 90 days, if the U.S. export remain uncertain for some reason, what is that alternative market that could be put in place?
Well, I don't know in terms of there are other markets, but the question is the product. I mean, our prize catch is yellowfin tuna, and so the United States is the primary demand for that particular product lies. The other markets, the region, I don't know if that is a premium choice of product. So I think you would have to look at to see what the other markets are required and whether or not the fishing folks will be palatable for them to venture, and whether or not they would have to change the different type of gear. They will have to change different hooks. They may have to do things differently to actually go catch different types of products, fishing products, to access those markets. So I think that is where we need to start. That's the first thing. But I did mention, GD, that there is an excellent opportunity for increased consumption now that we have we in the tourist season. We get into the peak of the tourist season, so I think there is an opportunity for that.
All right.
Through CARICOM, we can have conversations with our other CARICOM partners to see if there are demands in terms of fishing products, and so we can try to access those markets through CARICOM. So I think those conversations probably should have started there already. If not, they can probably have that conversation in those areas to see how best we can look at alternative markets. And I did mention that we currently ship to the European Union, to Martinique, French Martinique in particular, and so there's a possibility that for increasing exports there. So alternative markets in the sense of not for tuna per se, but just for other fishing products, so that the fisher folks can diversify, move away from tuna in the interim and look at other types of fish perhaps.
All right. I still want to go back in terms of the conversation of support for fishermen. Of course, let's go back to when the new National Party was in power. Have there ever been any, of course, insurance or something for that fishermen can rely on is there besides the NIS? Especially when the opportunities for them to fish has diminished a wee bit. Has there ever been an insurance or so that besides NIS or something else that offers support for fishermen? Has there ever been that in existence before? In existence?
I can't recall anything formally being established, in honest, but I know that conversations would have taken place around that in the context of encouraging fishermen to form themselves into functional associations where that they would be able to access those facilities. But I can't recall anything. What I do recall is that one of our policies centered around having a strong reserve. Having a strong reserve, so when you have situations like this, you can tap into those reserves to provide support in cases like this, critical cases like this. Like, for example, during COVID, because of our policy in terms of fiscal policy, in terms of having a strong financial reserve, we were able to pay public servant salaries for several months with everybody at home. So that is what being resilient in terms from a fiscal standpoint, and those were our economic policies, and we stand by those because you don't know what will take place at any point in time. But as a government, you want to be able to respond to support your people in the event that you have an issue, crisis, concern. The same way how we invested in the craft facility, and why our country could have received in excess for $100 million 14 days after the hurricane. So those are the fiscal policies that we guided by, and those fiscal policies are tailored for the people. They are tailored for response to support our people when we have issues, crises, things out of our control. So that I know we have maintained our fiscal policy, and we will continue with those. Always tailoring those policies to see how best we can respond to the needs of people.
All right. So the Cox, we drew for a break. Let's take it. When we come back, we continue with the conversation. Stay with us, folks. It's To The Point, Classic Radio, GBN TV. We'll be right back after the break. Don't touch your dial. welcome back, listeners, welcome back, viewers. Once again, it's To The Point here on Classic Radio GBN TV. It's Tuesday, the 6th day of January 2026. We say welcome back to Senator Cox once again. Senator Cox, welcome back. You know, I don't think it's a better person I could ask this, but this particular question I want to talk about is all about Carriacou and PT Martinique. Hurricane Beryl, the recovery. What are some of the key areas would you measure the progress by thus far in terms of, the recovery process, I should say, how things are progressing as it stands right now? What are some of the key areas would you measure the progress by right now?
Well, GT, I think it's important to indicate that housing has been and continue to be a major issue, major area of concern. So any measurement of progress, I think, would center around that. And the reason for that being is because that is what affects people most. While most businesses are up, other services, government services are operational. If people are still not comfortable, they will, of course, they will verbalize those. And so housing still remain one of the key issues, the key concerns. So I think measurement should be around that area. Maybe if I can just probably do a summary assessment, I think it's fair to do it that way in terms of what government indicated they spent and what we see in terms of returns. So from my recollection, from budget presentation and documents, budget documents, government indicated they spend thus far $200 million on bear recovery in Carriacou. And I think in terms of homes, we probably had about 50 or plus homes or so that was handed over. So I think that is the measurement right there. We could start with that as a measurement to see whether or not it is satisfactory based on what government spent and based on what the housing return is like. So there are still other issues. The playing fields are still a concern. While we do have the Larson area to operate, but it's still a major concern and still a need, of course. But housing is the key issue. I would contend that persons are still dealing with, still grappling with. And I could even go further to say that persons who have been able to replace the roof, whether by themselves or with government help, the house, inside the house is still a shell. In some cases, it's not livable. Persons are not living in some of the houses. Even some of the Build Back Better houses that were handing over, some persons are still not actually living in them as yet because they are not livable inside. There are things for the homeowners to do, maybe finishing work or whatever the case may be, tiling in some cases, painting in some cases, electrical in some cases, plumbing in some cases. So these are varying degrees. So housing still remain a major concern. And just to remind you that persons are grateful for whatever support and help that they receive and look forward to those support going forward. So that will be my feedback on that.
Overall, sir, in the recovery efforts in Carriacou and Petit Martinique, could you say that you're satisfied that it's done so far? You spoke a wee bit that yes, housing is still at a level that is at the level that is at. But in the overall recovery effort of Carriacou and Petit Martinique, what you have seen thus far, are you satisfied that more could have been done, or should you say, well, you're pleased what has taken place thus far?
Well, I think really and truly, that is really and truly a question I think that the government have to answer themselves first. All right, and also, I think it's in fairness to hear from the people who are actually impacted by this, their feedback as well. From my standpoint, I've verbalized this on several occasions. How it is done, I think that has been the major concern and the major failure in terms of the structure, the lack thereof of proper structure, criterias. That in itself continue to be troubling. We hear reports of misappropriations of materials, of monies, persons getting support that 2 2 and 3 times getting the same support. So there's a slew of issues surrounding it in terms of the management of the recovery. The question of whether more could be done. There might be a possibility that more could have been done with what was available in terms of finances if it was done properly. And so, because there is clearly a lot of wastage, especially with the removal of the debris, and so it's a slew of issues. If we're going to dive into that today, it's going to be a long program. So I would say I have always been consistent that is the critical issue, and that remains until we see a different structure. I think that they are going to continue to have challenges in terms of how they dispense the support going forward. And the people will have given good suggestions as to how it can be done. Look, for example, we still have the issue of PD Matlick and the transportation and the connectivity issue with the jetty or lack thereof. So those are still issues. GD, I didn't even mention on this program, but there's two jetties that have been built on the windward side of the island. There's one by the fish center. I haven't spoken about it for a number of reasons, but I always give government opportunity to do what they have to do before critiquing anything or until I see that there is a need to speak about something. So there are two jetties. One started by the fish center, which is unfinished and unusable, and it's a challenge for the fishing community. So hopeful that we see some activity on that this year, as well as the one in Windwater as well. So just wanted to mention those.
Okay, and we're moving up just roughly around 10 minutes or so before the top of the hour this morning. And in this segment, I will, of course, invite our listeners and viewers, if you have a contribution that you would like to make towards this program this morning, in terms of a question, I beg of you to be brief. And of course, in the question you may like to ask Senator Cox. And as I mentioned, we have just approximately 10 minutes. We go to the phone line. We do have our first caller. Caller via WhatsApp. Good morning. You are live. Good morning to you.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Cox.
Good morning, sir.
Why is it that we have incompetent people now talking about something that they have to contribute, which is the ban that is placed on fishermen in terms of the export of the tuna fish? Since 2017, there was obligation to have provided information. Incompetent politicians and civil servants did nothing. And today, you hear them talking as though they want to help the fishermen. Hogwash. Bullshit. When you all had an opportunity to do something and you did nothing. So 2017 to 2022, nothing done by politicians. And people must call you all out for your hypocrisy. Additionally, there was no effort made for the last 20 years to get new market for fishermen. Whether it is in Martinique, whether it is in the European Union, in Europe, whether it is in Argentina, nothing. Why you all try to fool people like that when you all did nothing for years? As a matter of fact, you all sit there, collect tax to have money. And even the cruise ships that come into Grenada, you all even make an effort to sell 1 iota of agricultural products on behalf of fishermen and farmers. You all should go and hide under your bed and don't come home. Have a blessed day, Mr. Fox. Hypocrisy to the skies.
Thank you, caller. Thank you for your contribution. Any response to the caller, Senator Cox?
Sure, certainly. I want to thank the caller for his contribution. Although everything is not correct, but I think it's important for me to clarify at this platform. So, in terms of the time when the caller spoke about 2016, yes, there were changes to the requirements in 2016, and that is a continuous process. Now, what would have happened in 2020, all right, it doesn't mean that anything wasn't done, but it was incomplete. So when we have COVID 2019, 2020, we receive what you call a stay, a further suspension then, for us to provide. Because of COVID, they give us an extension, and the extension was up to 2022. Come 2022, there was a change in government. And as such, the responsibility to complete the readjustment fell on the new administration. So it's not a dereliction of duty. So I just wanted to clarify that. And there are always going to be things continuous in government. I mean, just as how the government now would be completing projects that were started in our time. So those are things that are continuous. The second thing you spoke about in terms of not doing anything, I think that again is incorrect. In terms of the markets, the US market is a market that was established not too long. So work would have been done by various administrations to ensure that we achieve the US market. The Martinique, significant work was done under Irving Nimrod time to ensure that we secure that market. There were changes as well, there were new requirements. So it is not as easy as it is to just enter into market. And once you're there are always going to be changes and updates. So we have to remain current. So I just wanted to clarify that. In terms of persons selling to the tourist ships, I think that I don't know exactly how that is done or what is required, because I know that there are agents for those ships coming in, and everything that have to go, you have to channel it through those agents if you want to sell directly. And those ships normally would take the cargo for in terms of food at the port of where they depart from. So those are some of the things that I think he's not particularly clear on. What happens is that when the tourists come off the boat, we in turn through our enterprises, through agro-processing our products, then we resell to vendors. But in terms of direct sale to tourist boats with products, and that is a whole different question. And so those things it is very likely, GT, that some of our tuna might be on those ships coming from the US and coming down to us. Yeah.
Okay. We do have another caller via WhatsApp. Caller via WhatsApp, good morning, you're welcome. Let's hear your contribution this morning, please.
Good morning, GT.
Good morning to you.
Good morning, Mr. Cox.
Pleasant morning, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Cox, I want to have a conversation with you, very short.
Well, a question, please, not a conversation this morning.
Well, we're going to hold up on the lengthy conversation. If you have a question, ask it and just go ahead, please. Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Cox, in the election with Sinja, right? Okay. I'd like to know who had won that election between you and Sinja was to determine who's going to be the candidate for the NNP. And why was Sinja chosen beside you? That's one of my questions. And was it a deal that made between you and Dr. Mitchell? Another question, I want to know, what is your source of income that will you get income now? Isn't that you make more money with the Senate than the business that you're doing right now?
Thank you, caller.
Would you be a next candidate in the next election coming up?
I didn't hear the last question.
All right. Thank you, caller. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Senator Cox, did you hear all the question the caller asked?
I didn't hear the last question. Something about
the last question he was asking, are you going to be a candidate in the next election coming up? I think that was the question he was asking.
Okay. Well, it is my intention. I'll start the last question first. It is my intention to be the candidate for the National Party come next general elections. But as you know, with anything, until that happens, it happens. All of our caretakers doesn't necessarily mean that they will be candidates. Anything can happen for one reason or the other. So yes, it is my intention. The next question was my personal income. I don't know if I want to disclose my business income publicly. In terms of my income from the parliament, those are public records, so the caller can access those. But my income from my business, I think, is for Indian revenue, so it's not for this platform. Maybe if you meet one-on-one personally, we can have those discussions. And the question surrounding, I think, was Mrs. Marjorie Stewart. Why she was chosen and not me. That was a party decision. I'm part of an organization, and the organization make decisions for one reason or the other. And did ask about some deal? No deal. I mean, sorry to disappoint you, but there was no deal. If I could recall, we had a meeting of members of the party when the decisions was made and the reasons for the decisions, and everything was clear and above board. And that's one of the things that I love about what transpired at that time. It was clear. Everything was clear and above board. So that I can say on that. So that's it.
Okay. We do have another caller. Caller via WhatsApp. Good morning. WhatsApp calls seem to be dominating this morning. Good morning to you, caller. You're live.
Good morning. Good morning. Happy New Year, Mr. GT, and to your guest, Mr. Cox.
Good morning to you.
Good morning and happy New Year to you too as well.
Right. Thank you for talking about the fishing industry and the challenges they are undertaking right now. My question to you is, in addition, we know there is a role for the government. They lead the country and they enact laws and rules and so on and interact with foreign entities. My question for you is, notwithstanding the role of the government, is there any role for the private sector to spearhead the finding of markets, alternative markets for the fisher folks? So can you see if there's any role for that? And if that's not been done, don't you think that that's an enterprise that is screaming for private investors? Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Thank you very much. Mr. Cox, respond.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, caller, for raising that. I think that's one of the areas that I think I'd glossed over. Yes, there is a significant opportunity and maybe part responsibility for the private sector to participate in this. We do have somebody who deals with actually the shipping, separate company, a private company who deals with the actual shipping of the products. So there's a great opportunity here now where private persons can themselves look for viable markets with support from government in terms of creating the environment for them to get in, or creating a window for them to have that conversation. Maybe even to help avoid some of the tariffs, so they can get some concessions to expedite. Maybe GIDC can assist private companies in terms of unlocking or entering those opportunities, those markets very smoothly and easily. So yes, private sector, there's an excellent opportunity for private sector during this period to look for markets themselves, separating apart from government. Government will normally point to where the markets are, and private sector will then in turn take up the mantle in terms of making the investment and to making those markets realistic and realize those access for the fishing community. So thank you very much, caller. Yes, that is a viable option.
Okay. I want to, Senator Cox, I think we may have exhausted most of our calls for the morning, and I think that, of course, we got to the time of the morning where we have to take a wrap for today's edition of To The Point. Senator Cox, I want to thank you once again for being on today's program. Thank you a whole lot, and certainly hope best wishes for the rest of the day, and all the best also for 2026, so that we could have more engagements as the year progresses.
Sure. Well, if I should take note, I think that I'm the first.
You got the ball rolling up this morning.
We have for 2026. So I think that was very something that is glaring. That I started off the GBN To The Point opposition. So we must take note of that.
So true.
So I opened up the year. I wanted to really thank the callers, of course, for calling, and I know sometimes that their views are not aligned with my views or party views. But what I'm certain about, that they have a shared concern as everyone else for the success of our country and to deal with some of the issues that continue to affect us. So I must commend them for calling, and the caller that caller asked about my personal income. I just wanted to maybe advise that if he has an opportunity or he has seen a way that he can add to my income, once it's legal, I welcome it as well. So I just want to put that out there.
All right.
but I do enjoy being in your program. I think it's an excellent opportunity for persons to call in and interact and to hear my views and way forward for our country, and also the party's views and philosophy in terms of what we want to see for our country. And so it's always a pleasure, and I want to wish everybody all the best for 2026 as we move forward.
Right.
Thank you, and have a pleasant day, GT.
And the same goes out to you too also, Senator Cox. Best wishes for the rest of the day and all the best. Thank you so much.
All right, bye-bye.
Hey folks, that's where we're going to take a wrap for today's edition of To The Point. I want to thank everyone who contributed in whatever way you did. You sat at home, you listened, you were driving along on the nation's roads, you listened also to the program. Thank you so much. Join me again tomorrow for government segment of the program on To The Point. So until then, folks, have a good one. That's why I say goodbye.